They say nothing ever happens in the deep backroads of the Louisiana bayou. That's a lie. Sometimes, things happen so far off the map, no one's ever left to talk about them. I was 12 this summer, everything changed. My best friend Jacob and I grew up in the kind of place where you could walk for miles and not see another soul. We lived out in the southern Louisiana backwoods, where the roads are really just long scars of gravel stitched between tangled green trees and slow-moving brown water. No streetlights, no sidewalks, just the sound of insects, frogs, and the occasional gator surfacing with a splash. Jacob's house sat about a half-mile down from mine, and we'd meet in the middle to play or walk the long road into the woods. That road, we just called it the stretch, cut between narrow patches of swamp and the edge of an old cypress bayou. During the day, it was quiet, peaceful even. At night, though, the whole world changed out there. But this happened just before dusk. That weird, in-between time when the sky turns orange and the shadows start getting long and nervous. We were walking back toward my house, joking about how we'd found a water moccasin earlier that day, when we heard the rumble of tires coming down the road behind us. We both turned around. That's when we saw it. A massive red pickup truck, a lifted beast with huge mud-slick tires and a double cab that looked like it had seen one too many swamps. It crawled toward us like a predator stalking through tall grass. Now, out in the bayou, you know everyone. You know their trucks, their dogs, their grandmas. This truck? We'd never seen it before. And in a place like ours, that meant something was wrong. Jacob nudged me. You know him. I shook my head. We did what we were taught. We stepped off the road, back into the tree line, out of reach. The man behind the wheel looked exactly like the kind of person you hope doesn't stop. Greasy hair pulled into a mullet. Scraggly beard. Tank top clinging to sunburned skin. His eyes looked like they'd been too wide for too long. He smiled like he was about to ask for your last breath. Y'all from around here? He asked, voice like sandpaper soaked in moonshine. Jacob nodded slowly. Yes, sir. The man leaned out the window, scanning the tree line behind us. I'm real turned around, looking for the road back to town. His tone was casual, friendly, but something in his body language was tight, like a rubber band stretched too far. I glanced at Jacob. He didn't speak. So I did. T-Town's back that way, sir. Take the next left at the fork, then just follow the signs. He smiled again, too wide this time. Appreciate it. Then he kept rolling down the road. We watched him go until he vanished around a sharp bend lined with cattails. I let out a breath. Creepy, huh? Jacob muttered. Yeah, let's keep moving. We walked a little faster, joking about how weird it was, trying to laugh it off. We shouldn't have. Not even 2 minutes later, we heard it. The roar of tires spinning in gravel. Then, the revving. We turned around just in time to see a cloud of dust exploding around the bend. The truck was coming back. Fast. No more smiling. No more asking for directions. We didn't speak. We ran. Full speed down the road, lungs burning, feet skidding over loose stone. I remember the sound of the truck growing louder, closer. My heart slammed so hard in my chest I thought it would burst. We knew there wasn't anywhere to hide out there. No fences. No houses. Just woods and water. Then I remembered the bridge. It was just up ahead, a splintered, old wooden thing barely wide enough for a single vehicle. It crossed a narrow channel of bayou water, the color of rust and shadow. Underneath it, the structure dipped low where the planks met the embankment. As kids, we'd crawled under it before, pretending we were pirates hiding from river patrols. No, it was our only shot. We rounded the final curve, the truck right behind us now, maybe 20 feet back. I could feel the heat of its engine. The roar filled my ears like a scream. The bridge appeared ahead, its wood slick with moss and rot. We dove off the road, sliding into the muck, and scurried beneath the edge of the bridge, into the shadows, spiders, and choking humidity. We pressed ourselves tight into the darkness, hearts beating like thunder. The air smelled like rot and wetwood. Seconds later, the truck slammed across the bridge overhead. The boards groaned under its weight. It stopped. We held our breath. The driver's side door opened. Boots thudded against the bridge. Then, silence. I could see between the slats above, tiny gaps between old planks, just wide enough for slivers of sky and bits of gravel to fall through. The man walked slowly across the bridge and stopped right above us. I saw his shadow bend as he leaned over the railing. He peered down, scanning the edge of the embankment. Then he walked back, to the other side, then back again. For a moment, I thought he'd spotted us. He muttered something, couldn't make it out. Then he spit, right through the cracks. It landed inches from Jacob's hand. We didn't flinch, didn't blink. The man stood there, breathing heavy, boots shifting on the boards. Then, suddenly, he screamed. It wasn't words, just frustration, rage. He stomped back to the truck, climbed in, and peeled off, tires shrieking across the planks. We waited, and waited, until we couldn't hear the engine anymore. Then, finally, we crawled out, covered in dirt, spiderwebs, and fear. We walked the rest of the way in silence. Didn't speak until we were inside my house, doors locked, curtains drawn. To this day, Jacob and I still talk about it sometimes, usually late at night, over cheap beer and mosquito bites on the back porch. We never saw that man again. But I know this. He wasn't lost. And if we hadn't hidden, well, maybe that bridge would have ended up with more than just spiderwebs beneath it. Some roads don't lead out of the woods. They just lead deeper into something waiting. Some people wear their madness loud, shouting nonsense in the streets. Others carry it quiet, wrapped in cloth, cradled like a newborn. And sometimes, when they ask for help, it's already too late to say no. I've lived in the same dusty corner of Southwest Virginia my whole life. It's the kind of place where folks know your name, your dog's name, and whether your grandpa fought in Korea or just said he did. You grow up trusting people, waving to every truck that passes, handing neighbors a plate before they even ask. That's how I was raised. And maybe that's what almost got me and my mom killed. It was late July when it happened. One of those days where the air sticks to your lungs and the heat warps everything into a haze. We were running errands, me riding shotgun while Mom drove her old beige Buick. AC blasting at full tilt, but still not cutting through the humidity. We were just heading back from the pharmacy when I saw her. A woman walking along the road, barefoot, hugging something bundled up in thick blankets against her chest. She was tall and rail-thin, skin pale and shiny with sweat, hair plastered to her face like she hadn't bathed in weeks. Her clothes were torn, denim skirt and a faded t-shirt, damp in the armpits. But it wasn't her that caught my attention. It was what she was carrying. A bundle, wrapped in layers of soft pink cloth. It looked like a baby. Except, it was swaddled tight, like a cocoon, in 96-degree heat. "Mom," I said, turning to her, "we should stop. That lady's carrying a baby. She must be overheating." Mom glanced over at her, frowning. "She doesn't look right. But she has a baby. Come on." With a sigh, Mom pulled into the gas station up the road. "Get a bottle of water," she said. "We'll see if she needs a ride." I came out with a big bottle of cold water, beads of condensation already running down the plastic. By then, the woman had reached the edge of the lot. Her eyes met mine, and I swear to God, I felt off just looking at her. There was something empty behind her gaze. She didn't smile, didn't wave, just walked straight to the car and opened the back door without a word. She slid in and sat stiffly, never letting go of the bundle. I turned to Mom, quietly mouthing, "What the hell?" Mom glanced at her through the rearview mirror. "Ma'am, where you headed?" The woman didn't answer right away. She just looked down at her arms, rocking slightly. Then, in a soft, whispery voice, "Just up the road. 2 miles past the Dollar General on Jeb Stewart Drive." Mom nodded and pulled back onto the road. The car filled with silence, the air thick with something wrong. I turned around in my seat, trying to break the ice. "How old's your baby?" She didn't look up. "She's perfect," she whispered. "Been quiet all day." She cooed softly, rocking the bundle. I forced a smile. "That's nice." But as I looked closer, something began to bother me. The bundle was too still. There was no movement, no breathing. And the weight of it, the way it sagged in her arms, felt off. Too heavy, too dense. Then, as she adjusted her grip, a piece of the blanket slipped. And I saw it. Not a baby. A drywall hammer. Wrapped in a baby blanket. Head tucked where the face would be, handle pressed to her chest like a tiny spine. My blood ran cold. She was cradling it, rocking it, whispering to it. She caught me looking. Her head snapped up, her eyes wide, teeth clenched. "She's sleeping. Don't wake her." I turned around, heart hammering in my chest. My hand shook as I reached for my phone, but I stopped. I didn't want to make her nervous. Not when she was sitting 3 feet behind me holding God knows what else under those blankets. I leaned toward my mom and whispered, "That's not a baby. It's a hammer. She's got a hammer wrapped up like it's alive." I could see Mom's hands tighten on the wheel. "All right," she said, voice calm. "We'll stop at the Dollar General. Tell her we need to use the restroom. We pulled into the parking lot and came to a slow stop. Mom turned to the woman. I'm sorry, hon. We just need to run in real quick. You want anything while we're inside? The woman didn't answer. She just stared down at the bundle, lips moving silently. We got out and met at the front of the car. Call the police, I said. I already am, Mom whispered, her phone trembling in her hand. Through the windshield, I saw the woman's head tilt. She was watching us. Her eyes were wide, filled with something brittle and hungry. Then, slowly, she got out of the car, bundle still pressed to her chest, and began walking toward the front entrance of the store. We backed away, slipping inside the automatic doors. I told the cashier to call the cops, tried to explain what was happening. The guy just stared at me like I was crazy. When we looked back outside, she was gone. The police arrived 20 minutes later. We gave them a full description and everything we'd seen. They searched the area, checked the camera feeds, but they didn't find her. Not a trace. Just the empty back seat of our Buick, and a single baby sock left behind. We drove home in silence. I didn't sleep that night. For weeks after, I kept seeing her in dreams, standing barefoot by the road, smiling down at that hammer like it was her child. I don't know if she was mentally ill, or if something darker had crept into her mind and made its home there. But I do know this. Sometimes, evil doesn't show up with a mask or a knife. Sometimes it smiles at you from the back seat, and cradles a lie like it's the only thing it's ever loved. Not every mother carries a child, and not every lullaby is meant to soothe. They say if you stare too long into the dark, something might stare back. But what they don't tell you is, sometimes, it already has been. And sometimes, it's waiting for you to notice. I was 11 when we moved to South Florida. Just me, my little brother, and our mom, starting fresh after the hurricane ate our home back in Mississippi. The new place was small, cheap rental on the corner of a noisy street, right across from a bodega that never slept. No more stars at night. No more woods. Just traffic, people yelling, neon lights buzzing into the early hours. I hated it at first, but being a kid, I adjusted. My room was the smallest in the house, barely big enough for a twin bed and a dresser. 2 windows, one tiny slit on the left wall and one massive thing that looked out over the front yard. It faced the sidewalk, half covered by a huge tree whose thick branches leaned against the glass like fingers. I never minded it much. If anything, I liked the shade. Until I didn't. It started the summer after we moved in. I'd be outside with my friends, riding bikes or playing with chalk near the curb. And every so often, I'd notice a man standing across the street, near the utility pole. Just standing there, watching. He wasn't doing anything, just still. No phone, no bag, no dog, just himself, in a long-sleeved shirt and jeans, even when it was hot enough to melt sneakers. The first time I waved, he didn't wave back. He smiled. Wide. Way too wide. The kind of smile you get when you've been waiting for someone to notice you. I told myself he was harmless. Maybe just a weirdo. We had plenty of those around. But he kept coming back. Every evening, around the same time, right as the sun dipped low and the street turned gold. He'd show up across the street, always in the same spot, always staring. Sometimes I'd be with friends, sometimes alone, but he never left until I did. One day, I finally told my mom. She looked out the window, saw him, and stormed outside like a mom on a mission. I watched from behind the curtain as she crossed the yard and confronted him. I couldn't hear what she said, but I saw her finger pointing in his face, saw his smile vanish like a switch being flipped. He turned and walked away, and for a few days after that, he didn't come back. I should have felt relieved, but something about the way he walked off, slow, calm, like he knew, it unsettled me, like we hadn't seen the last of him. Later that week, I rearranged my room, moved my bed so that it sat under the far wall, just beneath the big window. I like to watch the moon at night, and the way the tree branches swayed in the wind always helped me fall asleep. That night, I asked my mom if I could leave the curtain open. She hesitated. You sure? She asked. You never know who's out there. I shrugged. You scared him off. He's gone. She gave me a kiss goodnight and closed the door. I turned off the lamp, curled up under my blanket, and stared out the window at the moonlight weaving through the branches. Eventually, I drifted off. I don't know what time I woke up, but I remember the feeling. Cold. Wrong. My eyes opened, and I didn't move. I was facing the window, bathed in silver light. And then I saw the silhouette. A shape, darker than the night. blocking part of the moonlight through the glass. Not a tree branch, not a bird, a man, standing perfectly still, watching me sleep. For a second, I couldn't even breathe. My body just locked up. He didn't move, didn't flinch, just stood there, his face barely inches from the glass. The window pane was fogging up where he breathed. That's how close he was. I couldn't scream. I couldn't even blink. I just stared at the outline of his head, the slope of his shoulders, the faint glimmer of his eyes catching the moonlight. He'd found me. I don't remember how long I stared before I finally broke. I shot out of bed, sprinted to my mom's room, and begged her to come see. Of course, by the time she followed me back, he was gone. She looked out the window, checked the yard, even stepped outside with a flashlight. Nothing. She said it was a nightmare. But I knew it wasn't, because the window wasn't just fogged up. There was a handprint, pressed right against the glass. The next day, I told my friends. They laughed, teased me, said I was probably dreaming. I let them tease me, but I kept checking that window every night. Curtains drawn tight. Still, for weeks, nothing happened. No man, no shadow, no fog. I almost convinced myself I had dreamed it. Until one afternoon, we were hanging out in my room. I pulled back the curtain to show my friends the infamous tree, and one of them said, "What's that?" We all looked. Down in the dirt, right under the window, footprints. Heavy ones, sunk deep into the soil. And something else, half buried. A strip of faded blue cloth, like a piece of a shirt. It smelled sour and stale. Not mine, not my brother's, not my mom's. We moved out a few months later. My mom said it was because the rent was going up, but I know better. I never saw that man again, but I still sleep with my curtains closed. I still check every window before I go to bed. And sometimes, on clear, quiet nights, I dream about branches tapping against glass. And a smile, just beyond the pane. Some people knock on the window. Others never need to. They're already watching. Sometimes, the people who love you the most are the ones who end up trying to destroy you. It doesn't start with bruises. It starts with sweet texts, clingy compliments, and the slow, quiet sound of your world shrinking. I was 19, living in a sleepy southern town where the days felt like molasses and the nights were thick with bugs and bad decisions. Most of my time was spent with my best friend, Elena, her boyfriend Marcus, and his twin brother Drew. They were my crew, my constant. When things at home were tense, they were my escape. I always felt like the fifth wheel, though. Everyone had someone. Everyone belonged. Except me. So when Drew's friend Riley started hanging around, I was all too eager to give him a chance. He was charming in that effortless, southern boy kind of way, tall, tan, curly blonde hair that hung just over his eyes. The first night we met, he pulled out my chair for me and paid for my drink without asking. I was smitten almost immediately. Our first date was perfect. Our second, even better. By the third, he was calling me his girl. By the fifth, he was saying things like, "I've never felt this way before." And by the seventh, he was checking my phone when I went to the bathroom. At the time, I thought it was cute. I was flattered, wanted, finally part of something. But it wasn't love. It was control. And I didn't realize I was in danger until it was already too late. The first real warning sign came when I caught him deleting numbers from my contacts. Friends, coworkers, even Elena. I confronted him. He laughed, said they weren't real friends if they didn't respect our time together. That same week, he showed up unannounced at my job, just to make sure I was okay. I told myself it was just a phase, that he'd calm down, but he didn't. He got worse. He'd accused me of things I never said, swore he overheard me talking about hooking up with Drew when I was literally talking to Elena about her birthday. I thought he was paranoid. Now I know he was unraveling. 3 months in, I was exhausted. He didn't work, didn't have a place of his own. He'd been couch surfing before we met and eventually started sleeping at my place more often than not. I was too afraid to tell him to leave. I felt trapped, and when I finally got the courage to end it, that's when he snapped. It was a quiet night. We were watching TV. I told him I didn't think it was working anymore, that we were moving too fast. He froze, didn't blink, didn't speak for a full minute. Then, in a voice I didn't recognize, he said, "If I can't have you, no one can." Things spiraled after that. I stopped answering his calls. He blew up my phone. My inbox was filled with threats disguised as apologies. He followed me to work, showed up at Elena's house in the middle of the night, banging on the door. I went to the police, tried to get a restraining order, but he hadn't physically hurt me, so they couldn't do anything. I felt helpless. Every knock at the door, every buzz on my phone, every shadow on the wall, I thought it was him. And sometimes, it was. The worst night of my life started quiet. Too quiet. Elena and Marcus were out of town. Drew had just left after dropping off groceries for me, trying to help me feel safe. I told him I'd be fine, that I'd lock all the doors. It was around 8:30 p.m. when the first knock came. I checked the peephole. No one. I told myself it was a prank. Sat back down. 10 minutes later, another knock. Still no one there. That's when I started getting scared. I called Elena. She said she'd leave work early if I needed her to. I told her I was okay. I wasn't. I decided to stay at Drew's mom's house that night. I packed a small overnight bag, grabbed my charger, and sat on the edge of my bed to tie my shoes. And that's when it happened. A hand, from under the bed, wrapped around my ankle. I screamed, kicked, fell hard on my side, but I recognized the voice before I saw the face. Stop fighting. Just talk to me. It was Riley. He was under my bed. He'd snuck in earlier. Maybe during one of those phantom knocks. Maybe hours before. I'll never know. I crawled toward the door, but he yanked me back. I was on my back, sobbing, screaming. He straddled my legs and held my wrists above my head. Why won't you listen? He whispered. I love you. I'd die for you. His eyes were wild, tear-filled, but not from sadness, from obsession. He lifted my shirt, pressed his hand to my stomach. I was 2 months pregnant, and in that moment, I saw something flicker behind his eyes. Possession. You're mine now, he said. I don't know how long we were on the floor. He pulled something from his pocket. Handcuffs. Said he just wanted to keep me still, so we could talk. When I screamed again, he kissed me. Rough. Forceful. But that was his mistake. Because in his frenzy, he didn't notice me reach for the lamp on the nightstand. Didn't see it coming when I swung it into his face. He screamed. Blood sprayed across the carpet. I scrambled for the door, flung it open now. And there, thank God, was Drew. He'd forgotten his wallet. Saw the broken window. Heard me screaming. He tackled Riley. Held him down while I called the cops. They arrested him. Finally. I moved not long after that. Started over. It took years to sleep without lights on. Even longer to stop checking under the bed. I had a baby girl. She's 6 now. She's my light. And I tell her every day, you never belong to anyone but yourself. Because now I know, love doesn't look like possession. It doesn't hide under your bed. He said I belong to him. But monsters don't get to decide who you are. It's funny how quickly the feeling of safety can vanish. One moment, you're stepping outside for your jacket. The next, you're staring into the dark and realizing someone's already staring back. And when you're this far out in the country, there's no one close enough to hear you scream. My family lives deep in rural Virginia, Farmville, believe it or not. A real place, not just a Facebook game. My grandma's house sits on a stretch of dirt road so long and winding it scared me the first time I visited as a kid. I remember crying in the backseat, terrified my mom wouldn't be able to find me again. She laughed about it later, said I'd watched too many scary movies. She didn't laugh after that night. It was just before Christmas. I'd flown in to surprise the family, the first time in years all of us grandkids had been together under one roof. The mood was warm, cozy, fireplace crackling, cookie dough in the fridge, old reruns of Mr. Bean on TV while snow lazily drifted outside. I stayed up late with my aunt, joking and reminiscing while the house grew quiet around us. Sometime after 2 a.m., my aunt's pit bull, Sadie, started whining. She needed to go out. And because I had left my jacket in the car, I volunteered to grab it on my way to the garage. The air was sharp, a biting 12 degrees, but the silence was peaceful, almost dreamlike. The garage was detached from the house, and because my cousin had accidentally backed into the door a few months earlier, the front panel was completely gone, just a wide, open mouth leading to blackness. A single dim bulb overhead cast sickly yellow light across the concrete floor. Just enough to see shapes. Just enough to feel watched. I was halfway to the car when I felt it. That crawling sensation down the back of your neck. The one you try to ignore. I turned, just casually, to glance toward the back wall of the garage where an old window faced out into the trees. That's when I saw him. A man. Standing just outside the glassless frame of the window. No movement. No sound. He was wearing a hoodie zipped up to the chin and a hat pulled low over his face, shadowing everything except the sliver of his jawline. His posture was off, slouched, but too still, like he'd frozen mid-step, but there was no mistaking it. He was staring straight at me. I couldn't breathe. I stood there, jacket forgotten in my hand, the weight of the silence pressing in around me. He didn't blink, didn't move, just watched me with that head slightly cocked, like I was a new species he was trying to figure out how to kill. I backed toward the car, keeping my eyes on him. I didn't want to turn my back. My legs felt hollow. I could already picture him rushing around the side of the house, grabbing me before I could reach the door. But he didn't move. Not yet. I slammed the car door shut, spinning toward the house. That's when I realized the door had locked behind me. I was trapped, barely dressed, phone inside, and the man was gone. I glanced back, expecting the space where he'd stood to be empty. It wasn't. He was in the garage now, inside the broken entry, just standing. His arms hung at his sides, not threatening, but not relaxed either, like they were just waiting. The only thing separating us was the car, a couple of bikes, and 20 feet of silence. I wanted to scream, but the sound lodged in my throat like a rock. My breath was fogging up the freezing air, and I could hear my heart hammering in my chest like a warning bell. Still, I ran. I bolted to the house, pounding on the door with both fists. I don't even remember yelling, just this primal, desperate sound clawing its way out of my throat. The door didn't open. I panicked, tried the knob again, harder this time. Still locked. Behind me, the footsteps started. Not heavy, not fast. Measured. One crunch. Then another. Not running. Just coming. Deliberate. I screamed again, slammed my shoulder into the door, and it flew open. I stumbled inside, hitting the hardwood floor as the porch light flared behind me. My aunt came rushing out of the living room, Sadie barking like a mad thing. Hair raised, teeth bared. The dog charged to the threshold. My aunt saw the look on my face, saw the wide-open garage, and without asking, she locked the door behind me. Her boyfriend flew out of their bedroom at boxers with a bat, running into the night like some small-town superhero. He circled the house 3 times. Nothing. The man was gone. Not a single footprint in the snow. No trace. But I know what I saw. I can still feel the way he looked at me, like I was a problem he was planning to solve. The cops came the next day, said there were no reports of any break-ins in the area. No suspects. No cameras out that far. Nothing to go on. Everyone tried to comfort me. Said maybe it was a trick of the light. But Sadie knew. She had never growled like that before or since. I stayed up for the rest of the night, wide awake, staring at the garage from the kitchen window. Every branch looked like a figure. Every gust of wind felt like breath on the glass. We still visit every now and then. Christmas, Thanksgiving. But I don't go outside after dark anymore. And I never, ever leave my jacket in the car. Some people don't knock. They wait for the door to lock behind you. They say nothing good happens after midnight in southeast Oklahoma. I used to think that was just a cliche, until the night a group of strangers decided to follow me down a back road that wasn't on any map. And I learned the hard way that some wrong turns don't lead to dead ends, they lead to something much worse. It was a Friday night, senior year, and I'd just taken Anna, the girl I'd crushed on since 9th grade, out on our first real date. We were in a neighboring town, about an hour from where she lived. Dinner, a movie, a few nervous laughs, and a lot of driving through winding roads and empty fields. In small towns like ours, if you want something to do, you better be ready to drive. The date went better than I could have hoped. By the end, we were sitting close in my truck, the kind of closeness that makes your palms sweat and your heart do backflips. It was almost midnight by the time we hit the gas station just off Highway 3 for fuel. The lot was mostly empty, just me, Anna, and an old Ford F-250 idling 2 pumps over. I didn't think much of the truck at first. Beat-up body, rust-stained grille, high beams off. But then I noticed both guys inside were just watching us. Not casually, not out of curiosity. Staring. And when I say staring, I mean full, unmoving eye contact. One guy even cracked a smile when he realized I'd noticed. Anna shifted uncomfortably in the passenger seat. They were staring at me while you were inside, she whispered when I got back. I looked again, still staring. I forced a laugh, waved sarcastically, and climbed into the truck. Just a couple of weirdos, I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. She didn't look convinced. Neither was I. We got back on the road. Highway 3 is long and open, just stretches of pavement between black fields and tree lines. I figured once we hit the next town, they'd be a memory. But after a few miles, headlights appeared behind us. I didn't panic, at first. Lots of people drive this road. It's the only route through town at night. But then the headlights got closer, brighter, too close. They began to swerve left and right, creeping up beside us, then falling back. The truck's high beams cut through the mirrors like searchlights. I glanced at Anna. Her smile was gone. Her hands were clutching her seatbelt. I sped up. They sped up too. Then came the first attempt to pass me. The truck veered into the left lane, inching closer to my driver's side door. We were going almost 70 on a narrow two-lane road, and I had nowhere to go but forward. I looked over. There were 3 guys in the cab now, all of them grinning. I floored it. Anna was shaking beside me. "What the hell are they doing?" she whispered. "I don't know, but I did." This wasn't just road rage. This was a game, and we were losing. I was hoping we'd hit a town, a gas station, a cop car, anything. But it was past midnight, and out here, everything was closed. The only lights were the moon and the occasional mailbox reflector. I took the first turn I saw, a narrow dirt road I didn't recognize. I thought if I could get off the highway, they'd lose interest. Big mistake. As soon as I turned, they followed. This road wasn't lit. No signs. Just trees and brush pressing in from both sides like the world was narrowing. We were flying now, my old pickup bouncing on ruts and loose gravel. The truck stayed behind us, matching every swerve, every shift. I tried weaving through turns, slamming my brakes, even shutting off my lights for a stretch. Nothing worked. They were glued to us. We were their entertainment now. Then, suddenly, they backed off. Their lights vanished behind a curve. It was like they'd disappeared. Anna and I were holding our breath. We lost them, I whispered. She didn't say anything, but I didn't slow down. Then we saw it. A small church. Whitewashed, crumbling, the kind you see on postcards and horror movie covers. Its lot was overgrown. Weeds cracked through the pavement, and a rusted sign hung crooked on one post. Chapel of Grace, EST 1893. I slammed the truck behind the building, killed the engine, and doused the lights. We sat in the dark, barely breathing, and then we heard it. The crunch of tires. The truck was back. They drove past the church slowly. So slowly it made my skin crawl. But they didn't stop. Didn't even pause. Just kept rolling down the road. We waited. Minutes passed. Then more. Eventually, I dared to move. Started the truck. Pulled back onto the road. We didn't see their headlights again. Not that night. I dropped Anna off at her house around 2 a.m. Her dad was waiting on the porch with a shotgun. I told him everything. He didn't say much. Just nodded and told me to get home safe. I don't think he ever let Anna drive alone again. I got back to my place and parked. Sat there for a long time, staring at my hands on the wheel. My knuckles were white. I thought it was over. But a week later, while driving home from work, I saw the truck again. Same rust. Same dents. Same blank stare from the driver. He didn't follow me that time. Just watched. I never saw their faces clearly. Never got a license plate. But I'll never forget that road. That grin. That feeling that we were no longer in control. That we were prey. Just waiting to make a mistake. Some people don't follow you for a reason. They follow you because they want to see what happens when no one else is watching.